We've been flicking through the international papers for you, at least I haven't, Kyle has. Stories on the Republican National Convention that's in full swing in Florida.
That's right. And I'm not sure if we can spot it already, but we probably have some images of the cartoons we've been seeing over the past few days. Great sense of the media attraction to these mega conventions. Here we can see the flags that are flying in the wind, showing us the storm weather in the US. And then, of course, in the last frame, we just see perhaps the equal velocity provided by the media, such as ourselves, of course, in covering these major conventions.
We do our best.
Now, let's turn to the FT now, because in those pages, Conrad Black, the major media baron, right-of-center historian, says that 15 years of American stupidity can be put to an end right now. You know, he says after winning the Cold War, after showing the way to democracies all over the world, the U.S. has somehow managed to make all kinds of blunders over the past 15 years, including outsourcing nearly 50 million jobs, all the while bringing in unskilled labor, at the same time engaging in military adventures in the Middle East, and then squandering trillions of dollars in that and losing American lives. All of these things have been committed by both parties, he says. And while Obama has increased, for example, the U.S. debt, Romney has basically been looking in all directions, flip-flopping on almost every major issue. Now, with the nomination, of course, of Paul Ryan, he spoke last night as the VP presidential candidate. For the first time, he says, in the election history, we have now a change in the tenor of the U.S. Presidential campaign. And so it's the first time now that we have perhaps the chance for the Republicans to hold Obama's feet to the fire with regard to the fiscal issues.
Now, The Atlantic is asking in an article that you've picked out, what happens when the media spot a lie amidst the mudslinging and no one cares?
Indeed. So the Atlantic is saying that American reporting of the U.S. political scene so far has been really a he said, she said situation where they'll report the various claims of each party, the mudslinging that goes along with it, and leave it basically to the reader or to the viewer to decide what's what. And they say, you know, reporters for the first time in a while brought it to the attention of the Republican camp this week, and they said, you know, for example, they falsely charged that Obama plans to eliminate any requirements of job seekers to provide any kind of proof that they're looking for a job or that they're getting some kind of job training. And the Republican campaign team said, listen, it's it's not going to be our job. We're not going to let these fact checkers dominate our campaign. And it let a bit of light into the fact that, you know, what happens when reporters say, listen, we're going to confront you then with the facts. Well, no one seemed to pay attention. There wasn't a great deal of attention paid at all to that exchange.
Facts, who needs them? Now, this is a good one for people like Kyle and I. Paralympics getting underway in the UK. The Games have forced journalists, of course, to figure out the most polite or politically correct terms to use to describe the events.
Yes, now here we have in The Independent a gentleman who was born with twisted limbs, and he says, you know, yes, we're all very polite in the UK. We try to be careful about the terms that we use for disabilities. But he said, listen, if you just tell the stories, don't worry about the terminology, of course, remain polite, but don't be overly polite. You know, for example, if we have someone who's supposed to come first, don't sympathize with them. We should ask why in the same way they would with the regular Olympic athletes. And he goes on to say that this is the biggest Paralympic event ever with 166 nations. It's a chance to build understanding of disabilities in general.
Yeah, it is a difficult one. I had a wire copy this morning which started right at the top with somebody being wheelchair bound, which some people do see as being a bit negative, really, and it should be people who use a wheelchair rather than wheelchair bound. It's one of those stories that does come up quite often, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a literal reference. It's debatable, but people tend to, get there in a hand-wringing state of affairs when they try to figure out the right word. But, we're in the business. We know what it's like.
Exactly. Difficult one. You can't please everyone all the time. Carl Brown, thank you very much. Carl Brown with the international papers here on France 24.